horizon, charting Asia's flourishing future. Let's take the discussion forward after dividing it into 5 basic parts: economics, development, trade and commerce, transport and tourism, and sports and entertainment and other accomplishments. Talking about economics, let's just discuss the history of Asian economics first. Pre-1945 era was most of the colonial rule era, where most of the countries are under colonial rule except a few like China, Japan and Siam. Japan took this time and developed its economy. At the same time, Southeast Asia was prospering due to trade and also due to the introduction of various new technologies there. From 1945 to 1990, now where China and India, which account for half of the population of Asia, adopted socialist reforms. But then they realized it later that it was not letting them develop their economy, it was a hindrance to their economic development. In contrast, economies of China and the 4 Asian tigers, known as basically South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore and Hong Kong, they were successful and the only successful economies outside the Western world. Talking about 1990 to 2007, now Chinese economy boomed. Also there was liberalization that happened in India. So both of these economies were in real boom period. Also during the 1990s, the manufacturing ability and the cheap availability of labor in Asia allowed many companies to establish their base in a lot of industries where only developed world had this say initially. So what happened that Asia became one of the largest sources of automobiles, machinery, audio equipment and other electronics. Then came the period of recession. The world was hit, Asia was also hit, but it bounced back pretty soon because of its strong policies and the framework. Couple of other facts that from 2002 to 2011, now the growth within Asia fluctuated within a narrow range, not falling below 6.2%, not rising above 8.7%. Over the 30 years from 1982 to 2011, China achieved annual growth in GDP per person of nearly 10%, leaving Japan behind and becoming the world's 2nd largest economy in 2010. And also, it graduated from the lower to higher middle income status according to the World Bank report. Now, if we talk about the future, we'll look at a lot of aspects here. First, given the large number and the cheap and ample availability of labor, which definitely works in the favor of Asia. Second, which does not really work in its favor, is a huge military spending. Asia has a lot of countries which are politically unstable, a lot of countries whose neighbors are politically unstable. So a huge amount goes into the military spending. We look at the East Asian nations such as economic leaders, China, Japan and South Korea will continue to flourish. So there is this unequal division in this region. East Asian nations will continue to flourish. Whereas on the other hand, Middle East and a few part of Southeast Asian nation will be in a state of trouble. But having said this, 2 facts. According to the World Bank, China may become the largest economy in the world between 2020 and 2030, and India may become the 2nd largest economy in the world between 2030 and 2035. Coming on to the development aspect. Now, first I'll touch upon the Millennium Development Goals. According to the latest assessment of United Nations, Asia has already reached its goal of halving the poverty by 2015. It is an earlier achiever in the goal of promoting education of girls, reducing the spread of HIV and tuberculosis, and it is also close to halving the number of people without access to safe drinking water. Coming on to the second aspect of development, technology. Now, there are 2 basic modes of being technologically developed. Either you can be an innovator or you can be an adopter. Being an adopter of technology, that is taking it from other countries, does give a high standard of living to the people and also is good for the long term. But economists suggest that innovators in the long term have a lead over the adopters. At this point of time, Asia is in the historic transition of being an innovator from being an adopter, and Japan has taken this lead many decades ago. Talking about the third aspect of investment, let's just look at the global investment. While only a quarter of global investment went to emerging markets and developing economies in 2002, this ratio changed to over 50% in 2012. Now, the emerging market and developed economies contributed 70% of the total global increase in investment from 2002 to 2012. And this can be explained because of the high population in this region, and around 60% of the world population lives in Asia. So you can see that other emerging nations in this particular aspect were virtually eclipsed by Asian performance. Third point, While investment accounts for less than a fifth of GDP in the advanced economies, the investment ratio amounts to a third in the emerging market and developing economies. Now, the Asian investment ratio was already highest in 2002, but in the period of 2002 to 2012, investment share of GDP climbed from 31 to 42%. So this reflects the enormous efforts made by the Asian government in capital formation, and also this reflects the preference of Asian government for investment over consumption, keeping in mind the long-term growth. Coming on to the fourth aspect of development, energy. As we know that fossil fuels will become extinct in a few years from now. So renewable energy is the need of the day, and Asian countries are not being left behind in this. China and India, they are investing hugely in this. China has shown 18% growth in investment in renewable energy. India has shown 63%. Coming on to the next aspect of discussion, which is trade. I'll discuss it in various parts. China has the largest trade surplus. Korea and Japan also have trade surplus in this region. India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, they are basically labor intensive countries, so they are producers of primary goods. You talk about Southeast Asian countries, they are heavily dependent on exports and majorly to United States. If you talk about Hong Kong, Singapore and Dubai, we can name them as Asian hotspots for trade. Talking about West Asia, which is majorly an oil exporter, but also the biggest importer of technology and infrastructure. At the same point of time, Central Asia, it's where recently gas and oil discovery has taken place. So it's a new market, but the problem is the this region is landlocked, so difficult to reach. Also in trade, a very important point, that trade within Asia accounts to a big amount of the total trade. So the countries within Asia have a lot of trade, regional trade agreements, and also they have a lot of trade within this continent itself, apart from trade outside the continent. Coming on to tourism. Now, a burgeoning middle class and a higher disposable income in Asia is the trend. A particular report says that travel by the middle class will grow as Asia expects to add at least addition 2.5 billion people in its middle class by 2030. Because of this increased rise in demand and also changing needs of the rising affluent Asian travelers, huge investment in infrastructure and tourism has to come along. In fact, a lot of Asian countries are also putting investment from their side for this particular aspect. For example, countries like Laos, Myanmar, Thailand and Vietnam, they convene to discuss measures to facilitate cooperation for economic and tourism development across the Trans-Asia Highway. If you talk about transport, air, land, water, any transport if you talk about, so for example, air transport has played an important role for the landlocked countries like Bangladesh and Nepal, and also some inaccessible and fragmented regions in Indonesia. China has recently come up with the fastest train in the world. Coming on to the entertainment and sports side, first I'll talk about the Nobel Prize winners. Now we have many Nobel laureates from Asia. Naming a few, I'll go ahead. Rabindranath Tagore, who went forward to become the first person to get the Nobel Prize in Literature. No one can forget Mother Teresa for getting the Nobel Peace Prize. If I talk about beauty pageants, for example, Miss World, Miss Asia Pacific, Miss Universe, we have it all. Coming on to movies. The growing ties between Asian and Hollywood industry has led to a phenomenon which is called Hollywoodization of Asia, or you may call it Asianization of Hollywood. In fact, it is estimated that in 20 years from now, Asia will be responsible for 60% of the box office revenues of Hollywood. One more very important aspect, Slumdog Millionaire was a Hollywood movie built on India with Indian actors, which went ahead to win the Oscars. Talking about sports, the fourth aspect, performance in sports is also something worth mentioning. If you talk about the 2012 Olympics, China was the second country overall, South Korea being 5th and Japan being 11th. 2010 Commonwealth Games were conducted by India in a grand way, and India came overall second position, followed by Malaysia and Singapore in 7th and 8th position. Having discussed Asia and different parameters, I would like to end saying two lines. It's easy to touch the stars, but difficult to get started. Now that we've got the start, stars are not far off.